The twin suns of Kestrel 9 were sinking behind jagged hills of red dust. The wind howled through the dry valleys, carrying grains of sand that bit at the skin like tiny knives. Mara Vey hunched under her tattered cloak, gripping the strap of her bag so tightly her knuckles turned white. She had been walking for hours, maybe days. It was hard to tell in a world where everything looked the same. Barren, broken, and silent. Her stomach growled, a cruel reminder that her rations had run out long ago. The last water drop had been swallowed the night before, and the last morsel of food had been chewed and swallowed yesterday. Mara's lips were dry, her throat raw, and yet she kept moving. She had to. To stop now was to surrender, and surrender meant dying alone in the dust. She looked down at her hand. On her finger was a small ring, made of gold and etched with patterns she didn't fully remember. It had belonged to her grandmother, a relic from a time before the collapse. Back then, gold had value. Now, it was just a piece of metal. But it was all she had left. Everything else, the family, the home, the city, she had fled, was gone. And yet, maybe, just maybe, this ring could buy her a few hours of survival. Mara had heard rumors of a small ranch on the outskirts of the valley, where humans still lived in small, stubborn clusters, defying the deadness of the world. They were said to be tough, resourceful, and sometimes kind to travelers who proved they could endure. She had no choice but to try. The ranch came into view as a cluster of low buildings and metal silos, surrounded by a fence built more for stubbornness than for defense. Smoke curled from a chimney, a sign of life in the vast emptiness. Mara quickened her pace, her legs aching with every step, her throat raw from shouting greetings to no one in particular. When she reached the gate, she paused. Two large dogs, lean and alert, emerged from the shadows, growling softly. Their eyes were sharp and intelligent, the kind of eyes that had learned to survive in a world where humans often did not. Mara held up her hands slowly, trying not to frighten them. "Easy," she whispered. "I don't want trouble." The dogs circled her once, then retreated to the shadows. Mara exhaled, relief and fear tangled in her chest. She approached the main building. The door opened before she could knock. A man stood there, tall and broad-shouldered, with weathered skin and a calm expression that made her want to lower her defenses and break down crying at the same time. "You're far from anywhere," he said, his voice low but firm. "What do you want?" I'm hungry," Mara said, her voice breaking. "I have this." She held out her hand, letting the golden ring catch the last rays of the sinking sun. "I can trade it. Please. I just need food and water. I don't want trouble." The man studied the ring but did not move to take it. Instead, he glanced back over his shoulder. A boy, maybe 16, emerged from behind the door. His dark hair was messy, and his clothes were worn, but his eyes were alive in a way Mara had not seen for months. The boy stepped forward. "We don't need gold," he said softly, but with a certainty that made Mara stop in her tracks. "We need you." Mara blinked. She thought she had misheard. "Me?" she asked. The boy nodded. "If you're willing to work, to learn, to survive, then yes. That's worth more than any ring." The man at the door, presumably the boy's father, crossed his arms but didn't interrupt. Mara looked at the two of them, at the warm light spilling from the doorway onto the dust. She looked at the ring, the last piece of her past, and then she looked at herself, hungry, tired, scared, but still standing. She swallowed. I'll stay," she said, her voice trembling. "Good," the boy said, and the man finally nodded. "Then welcome to Calder Ranch. You'll eat, you'll work, and you'll learn. That's how we survive here." Mara stepped over the threshold. The air inside the building was warm and smelled faintly of cooked grain and wood smoke. She had never smelled food that good in her life. Her stomach growled again, and she realized tears were sliding down her cheeks. She quickly wiped them away. Embarrassed. She was a grown woman, and yet she felt like a child who had been rescued. Dinner was simple. Bread, a stew of whatever vegetables the ranch had grown, and water. Mara ate slowly at first, savoring each bite as though it were a rare treasure. Around her, the ranchers moved with quiet efficiency, tending to chores, repairing equipment, and checking on animals. Each movement was precise, practiced, and calm, yet there was a strength beneath it that Mara could feel, the kind of strength that comes from facing the unforgiving world day after day. After the meal, the boy, Eli, as she learned, led her to a small room at the edge of the building. It had a cot, a blanket, and a window that looked out over the red hills. Mara dropped her bag and sank onto the cot, exhausted in a way that went beyond her body. Her mind spun with relief, disbelief, and a twinge of fear. "Tomorrow," Eli said, standing at the door, "you'll start learning how things work here. You'll see what we grow, how we fix things, and why survival isn't just about food or water. It's about knowing what to do when the world tries to kill you." Mara nodded. She didn't ask any questions. She was too tired. But in her heart, she felt a spark, a small, fragile flame of hope she hadn't felt in months. She lay on the cot that night, listening to the wind outside and the occasional shuffle of animals in the pens. The ring on her finger glinted in the moonlight streaming through the window. She touched it lightly and thought of her grandmother, of the life she had lost, and of the life that might still be possible. For the first time in a long time, Mara allowed herself to imagine surviving, not just existing, but living. The ranch was quiet, but it was alive. And for Mara, that was enough. Outside, the wind continued to howl. The suns had set, and darkness spread over Kestrel 9 like a velvet blanket. Mara closed her eyes, and for the first time in months, she slept without fear. Tomorrow, she would work. Tomorrow, she would learn. And tomorrow, she would begin to understand what it meant to belong somewhere again. For now, all she could do was breathe and survive. And that was the first step toward everything. The morning sun rose over Kestrel 9 like a pale, trembling promise. Mara Vey opened her eyes to the soft orange light spilling through the small window of her room. Her body ached in ways she had forgotten existed. Every joint and muscle complained from the long walk to the ranch, the harsh nights under the cold stars, and the hunger that had gnawed at her for days. But this morning was different. Today, she would learn how to survive, and maybe even how to belong. Eli was already awake. He knocked gently on the door before opening it. "Come on," he said. "Breakfast first. Then we'll start." Mara dressed quickly, pulling on the simple clothes provided for her. Sturdy pants, a shirt patched in several places, and boots that were heavy but reliable. She felt clumsy in them, but Eli didn't comment. He just nodded and led her to the dining area. Breakfast was simple: hard bread, salted meat, and water. Mara ate slowly, savoring the warmth in her belly. She had not felt this safe in weeks, maybe months. Afterward, Eli led her outside to the fields. The ranch was small, but it was alive. Patches of green pushed through the red dust, rows of plants bending slightly under the twin suns. A few animals grazed quietly, watched over by other ranchers, who gave Mara curious but approving glances. "This is the first lesson," Eli said, gesturing to the crops. "Life here is fragile. One mistake, one missed irrigation, one failed fence, and something dies. You need to understand that survival is work. Every day." Mara nodded, trying to absorb every word. The heat pressed down on her, the dust whipped at her eyes, and yet, she felt a strange energy building inside her, a determination she had forgotten she possessed. Eli handed her a small tool, a sort of spade with reinforced edges. "Start here," he said, pointing to a dry patch of soil. "Prepare it for planting. Humans can survive alone sometimes, but they don't thrive unless they work together." The first hour was brutal. Mara's hands blistered from the rough handle of the spade. Dust clung to her skin, sweat streaked her face, and the sun bore down relentlessly. She wanted to stop, to sink into the dirt and cry. But Eli stayed beside her, moving with quiet precision, showing her how to angle the spade, how to loosen the soil without crushing the young roots nearby. "You're stronger than you think," he said. "But strength isn't just in your arms. It's in your mind, too. You have to learn when to push and when to pause. That's what humans do. We endure." By midday, Mara had worked herself into exhaustion. Eli helped her carry a bucket of water to the new plants, and she felt a strange pride in the small green shoots that seemed to shimmer under her care. She had done this. She had contributed. As they rested in the shade of a small shelter, Mara finally asked the question that had been burning in her mind since the night before. "Why? Why me? Why didn't you just send me away?" Eli looked at her thoughtfully. "Because we can tell. You've survived. Not just walked here, but survived. That's rare now. Most people give up. Most people try to buy safety and fail. But you have something that matters here. People who endure, who learn, who adapt. That's worth more than gold, more than food, more than anything we can trade." Mara swallowed. The words were simple, but they carried a weight she hadn't felt in a long time. She had been worthless for so long in her own eyes. Now, someone saw her as valuable. Not for what she had, but for who she was. The next few days passed in a blur of learning and labor. Mara discovered that the ranch was more than fields and animals. There were water collectors, solar panels scavenged from old satellites, and storage units that preserved seeds and food for months. Every tool, every structure, had a purpose. Every person had a role, and everyone depended on each other. Mara learned to tend the animals, to repair fences, and even to read the weather patterns that shifted unpredictably under Kestrel 9's twin suns. She stumbled often, making mistakes that cost time and effort, but the ranchers never shamed her. They corrected her, guided her, and let her try again. One evening, while repairing a broken fence near the edge of the ranch, Mara noticed movement in the distance. A flock of strange, alien birds' feathers, shimmering in colors she had never seen, swooped low over the hills. She froze, unsure if they were dangerous. Eli approached quietly. "They're curious," he said. "They've never seen humans this close before. Watch and learn. Fear can kill you faster than hunger." Mara took a deep breath and observed. The birds did not attack. They circled, then vanished beyond the hills. For the first time, she understood Eli's lesson. Survival was not just about strength or speed. It was about observation, patience, and understanding. As the weeks went by, Mara grew stronger, not just in body but in spirit. She found joy in small victories. A fence repaired before a storm, a crop saved from the dust, a hatchling that survived its first week. Each success reminded her that humans were capable of more than just enduring, they could thrive. But life on Kestrel 9 was never easy. One morning, a massive storm rolled in from the north. The twin suns disappeared behind black clouds, and the wind howled like a living creature. Mara and Eli ran to secure the animals and protect the crops. Dust stung their eyes, and the rain that followed was thick and cold, soaking through their clothes in seconds. For hours, they worked without pause. Mara fell multiple times, scraped and bruised, but Eli's hand was always there to pull her up. Together, they managed to save the majority of the livestock and crops, though not without cost. Some plants were destroyed, and one young calf had to be led back inside. Shivering and frightened, after the storm passed, the ranch lay in silence. Mud clung to Mara's clothes, and her body ached from head to toe. But when she looked around, she saw the other ranchers tending to what remained, repairing fences, and checking on each other. Despite the damage, life endured, and she had helped. That night, by the fire, Mara finally felt a sense of belonging she had not known for months. The ranchers shared stories of old Earth, of colonies long gone, of survival and courage. She listened, captivated, realizing that these were not just people, they were human history in motion, carrying knowledge and resilience forward into a world that had almost forgotten them. Eli sat beside her, passing her a small piece of bread. "You're part of this now," he said quietly. "It's not about gold, or rings, or what you've lost. It's about what you give, what you can endure, what you can learn, what you can protect. That's what humans do. We survive together." Mara chewed slowly, letting the warmth of the bread and the meaning of his words sink in. She had spent so long believing she was powerless, that she was nothing without her past, without her possessions. Now, she saw that her value was not in what she carried, but in who she was and what she could do. As the twin moons rose over Kestrel 9, casting silver light over the red hills, Mara made a silent promise to herself. She would endure, she would learn, she would protect this small human oasis in the midst of a harsh, dying world. Because here, on the edge of the galaxy, she had found something worth fighting for. Something humans had always understood, but the galaxy had almost forgotten. Survival was not just about the individual, it was about the people around you, the community you built, and the strength you shared. And Mara Vey was finally ready to be a part of it. The mornings on Kestrel 9 had grown routine. Mara Vey had learned to wake before the suns rose, to work without complaint, and to anticipate the needs of the ranch. Every day was a lesson in endurance, observation, and human ingenuity. She had discovered the small joys hidden in survival. The warmth of water after a long day, the first shoots of crops after planting, the soft nuzzle of a calf she had helped care for. But the world beyond the ranch was never quiet for long. One afternoon, as Mara tended the small solar collectors near the edge of the property, Eli approached, his face serious. "You need to see this," he said. Mara followed him to the ridge overlooking the valley. At first, she thought her eyes were playing tricks on her. Small shapes glinted in the distance, moving unnaturally against the red dust. But as they drew closer, she saw what they were. Vehicles sleek, alien, and armed. "They're coming for us," Eli said quietly. "We're not alone anymore." Mara's heart pounded. For weeks, she had believed that isolation meant safety. The galaxy had forgotten Kestrel 9, and that had been humanity's shield. But now, that shield was broken. Mara glanced down at her hands, dirty and calloused from work, and felt a wave of fear she had not known since the collapse. Eli placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "Don't panic. We've survived worse than strangers in metal machines. Humans survive because we adapt, because we endure, and because we fight for each other. You've learned that here. Now you'll see it in action." The visitors arrived by nightfall. Their ships, black and smooth like falling stars, landed just beyond the ridge. Mara could hear the hum of their engines vibrating through the ground. Figures moved inside the light of the ships, tall, foreign, their movements precise and controlled. They were not human. They had never underestimated humanity before, but that had changed. The ranchers moved quickly, but quietly. Every person knew their role. Barriers were erected, animals were secured, and every possible tool that could be used as a weapon or shield was prepared. Mara, though inexperienced in combat, was assigned to help with the defense of the crops and the water collectors, her knowledge of the systems suddenly invaluable. The alien shapes approached. Mara held her breath. She had no idea what they wanted, only that they had assumed humanity would be weak. She clenched her fists, remembering Eli's words. "Humans survive because we adapt." Hours passed in tense silence. The aliens seemed to be studying the ranch, scanning, observing. Mara peeked from behind a reinforced fence and noticed the careful way they analyzed each structure. They did not attack. They expected the humans to panic, to run, to sell whatever they could. But the ranchers stood firm. They moved calmly, purposefully, showing a confidence the aliens had not anticipated. Eli leaned close. "This is our advantage. They don't understand humans anymore. They think strength is in numbers or weapons. But our strength is in endurance, in learning, in adaptation. Watch and learn." Mara nodded, feeling a strange energy rise in her chest. For the first time, she understood the depth of Eli's lesson. Survival was not just a personal struggle, it was a collective, intelligent effort. And humans were masters of it. Days passed, and the aliens made their intentions clear. They wanted to claim Kestrel Nine's resources, water, crops, and the rare minerals buried under the red soil. They believed the ranchers would submit easily. They were wrong. Mara watched as the humans of Calder Ranch executed a series of calculated moves. Barriers were strengthened, decoy crops were planted, and systems were activated that rerouted water and power in ways that confused the invaders. Every action Mara had learned in the past weeks now became crucial. She worked alongside Eli, securing sensors and reinforcing structures, her fear replaced by focus. During a tense night, Mara ventured with Eli to repair a damaged solar collector near the edge of the ridge. The wind howled, carrying dust that stung their eyes, and the alien ships glowed in the distance, their lights scanning relentlessly. Mara's hands trembled as she worked, but Eli's calm presence reminded her to trust what she had learned. "You're ready for this," he said. "Do you trust yourself?" Mara took a deep breath. "Yes," she said. "I trust us." The next morning, the aliens made their move. Small drones descended from the ships, attempting to seize control of the water storage. But Mara, Eli, and the ranchers were ready. They activated traps, rerouted defenses, and guided the drones into areas where they could be contained or disabled. Mara's heart raced as she worked tirelessly. But every action was precise, every move calculated. By midday, the aliens realized the humans were not helpless. They regrouped, but instead of attacking recklessly, they began observing again, trying to understand the ranch's strategies. Mara saw the moment of confusion in their movements. Humanity was showing a resilience and intelligence they had not anticipated. Eli turned to Mara. "They think they can calculate us, predict us. But humans are unpredictable. We endure, we adapt, and we fight for each other." Mara felt a surge of pride and determination. She no longer saw herself as a visitor or a helpless outsider. She was a part of this community. Every choice, every action, every small success mattered. She had found her place, and now she had a reason to fight. The invaders finally retreated, not defeated by force, but by frustration. They had underestimated the humans' ability to endure, to learn, and to protect what they valued. They left a warning: humanity is dangerous, even in small numbers. The ranchers did not celebrate. There was relief, yes, but also reflection. Mara walked among them, noticing the quiet pride in their eyes. Every person had contributed. Every mind had been valuable. Every skill mattered, and she had been part of it. That evening, Mara sat by the fire with Eli. "I didn't know I could do this," she admitted, her voice soft. "I thought I was weak, useless." Eli smiled gently. "You weren't weak. You were untested. You've learned that humans survive because we endure together. It's not about what you bring with you. It's about what you can do, who you can help, how you can adapt." Mara nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude and pride. She thought of the ring on her finger, a relic of a past world, a symbol of survival. It no longer mattered as currency. Its real value was in reminding her of what she had endured, what she had learned, and what she could still achieve. As the night deepened, Mara stepped outside to look at the stars. The twin moons of Kestrel 9 hung low in the sky, casting silver light over the red dust. She thought of the galaxy beyond, of the civilizations that had forgotten or underestimated humans, and she realized something powerful. Humans were not to be measured by wealth, numbers, or weapons. They were to be measured by resilience, ingenuity, and the courage to endure together. Mara had come to the ranch hungry, exhausted, and alone. Now, she was strong, capable, and part of something larger than herself. She had learned the most important lesson of all. Survival was not just about enduring the world, it was about outlasting its challenges, adapting. Weeks had passed since the alien visitors had retreated, leaving Calder Ranch intact but wary. Life on Kestrel 9 had returned to its measured rhythm, yet the ranchers moved with careful awareness, knowing that danger could return at any time. Marave had grown stronger, faster, and more confident in her abilities. She was no longer the frightened traveler who had stumbled onto the ranch with only a ring to offer. She was part of the community, and the community was part of her. One late afternoon, Mara sat by the small pond near the center of the ranch, cleaning the tools she had used that day. The suns hung low in the sky, their light turning the red dust into shades of gold and orange. She reached for the ring on her finger, turning it over in her hands. The gold had survived the collapse, a relic from a world long gone. She thought of her grandmother, who had told her stories of the old earth and the lives people had built before everything fell apart. That ring had once represented wealth, family, and connection. Now, it represented something far more personal: survival, endurance, and the journey that had brought her to this place. Mara's thoughts were interrupted by Eli's voice. "You've been quiet," he said, stepping into the soft light. "Thinking about that ring again?" Mara nodded. I keep wondering if it still matters. It was the only thing I had when I arrived. The only thing that reminded me of home. I thought it might help me pay my way. But you and your father didn't want it. You wanted me. I don't understand. I thought it my way. I don't understand." Eli sat beside her, his gaze fixed on the distant hills. "The ring doesn't matter because what you brought was never about gold. It was about strength, resilience, and the choice to endure. That's more valuable than any piece of metal. You've proven that in the past weeks. You've earned your place here. You didn't need to trade anything, Mara. You just needed to live, to learn, and to adapt." Mara looked down at the ring again, turning it slowly between her fingers. A small smile tugged at her lips. "Then maybe it can mean something else," she said softly. Eli tilted his head. "What do you mean?" "I don't know yet," Mara admitted. "But it feels wrong to keep it just for me. It survived everything, just like the humans who endured the collapse. Maybe it should belong to all of us." The next morning, Mara proposed her idea to the ranchers. They gathered in the central hall, a modest building filled with maps, tools, and plans for irrigation and defense. Mara held the ring in her hand, her heart pounding. "I know this ring came from my past," she began. "It was valuable in a world that no longer exists. But here, it's just a piece of metal. I want it to mean something more. I want it to represent what we've built here, our strength, our community, our ability to endure. Can we melt it down, reshape it, and use it as a symbol for the ranch? A mark of unity?" The ranchers were silent for a moment, studying Mara carefully. Then, Eli's father, the rancher, spoke. "You've come a long way in a short time, Mara. You've proven that your value isn't in what you have, but in what you do. If you want the ring to become a symbol for all of us, then that's a good idea. Let's do it." Mara felt a warmth in her chest. She had not expected acceptance so quickly, but the ranchers had seen her growth, her dedication, and her courage. Together, they melted the gold in a small forge, careful and precise. Mara guided the process, shaping the molten metal into a circular seal, engraved with symbols representing endurance, unity, and the ongoing struggle for survival. When the seal cooled, Mara held it up. The metal gleamed in the sunlight, a new symbol born from an old relic. She placed it in the central hall, where every decision, plan, and important agreement would now be marked with the seal. "This is for us," she said quietly, a reminder that humanity's value is not in wealth or possessions, but in the strength to survive, the courage to endure, and the bonds we create. The ranchers nodded, some smiling, some silently reflecting. Mara realized that the ring had become something far greater than she had imagined. It had transformed from a personal relic into a symbol of human endurance and community. As the days passed, Mara noticed that the seal inspired more than just pride. It reminded everyone that their work mattered, that their efforts to survive were not in vain, and that they were part of something larger than themselves. New settlers who arrived at the ranch were shown the seal and explained its meaning. Mara told them the story of the ring and how humans could endure, adapt, and thrive together, even in a harsh and unforgiving world. One morning, Mara was called to the ridge by Eli. From there, they could see smoke rising in the distance from a neighboring settlement. Mara's heart sank. She had thought the galaxy had mostly forgotten Kestrel 9, but now it seemed danger could come at any moment. "They need help," Eli said. "We can't ignore it." Mara nodded. "We've survived together. We can help them too." The journey to the neighboring settlement was arduous. The red dust turned to rough stone, and Mara's muscles ached with every step. But she felt a deep sense of purpose. She was no longer a passive survivor. She was part of a network of humans determined to endure, adapt, and protect one another. When they arrived, Mara saw the damage the settlement had suffered. Structures were broken, crops destroyed, and the people looked tired and afraid. But there was still hope in their eyes. They had survived, and now help had arrived. Mara and the ranchers worked tirelessly to repair fences, rebuild shelters, and restore the irrigation system. Mara's knowledge of old Earth technology proved invaluable, as she helped restart water pumps and energy collectors. Slowly, the settlement began to recover, and Mara felt a swell of pride. The ring, now a seal, had inspired not just Calder Ranch but others as well. It was a symbol of human resilience, and its meaning spread beyond the walls of their home. One evening, as Mara and Eli watched the sun dip below the hills, he turned to her. "You've done more than survive, Mara. You've helped others see what humans are capable of. Strength isn't in wealth, numbers, or weapons. It's in endurance, courage, and the willingness to protect each other." Mara smiled. "I used to think the ring was all I had. Now I know it was never about what I carried. It was about what I became. And what we all can become together." Eli nodded. "Exactly. And that's what makes humans dangerous to anyone who underestimates us." Mara looked at the seal, gleaming in the twilight. She traced the symbols with her fingers, feeling the weight of their meaning. It was a reminder of survival, of growth, and of community. It was proof that humanity could endure even in a galaxy that had tried to forget it. And for the first time in her life, Mara felt truly at home. She had arrived at Calder Ranch with only a ring and a desperate hope. Now, she had a purpose, a place, and a symbol of everything humanity could achieve when people worked together. The ring had been transformed, just as she had been transformed, into something far greater than either could have been alone. Kestrel 9 was still a harsh world. The red dust still cut like knives, and the twin suns still bore down mercilessly. But Mara knew one thing with certainty. Humanity could survive, adapt, and thrive, even here, even now. And as long as humans remembered that, nothing could truly destroy them. The months had passed quietly on Calder Ranch. Though quiet in this world did not mean easy. Mara Vey had grown into her role as a vital part of the ranch community. She rose before the suns, worked tirelessly, and shared her knowledge of old Earth technology to maintain the systems that kept the ranch alive. The seal of the ring, once her grandmother's relic, was now prominently displayed in the main hall. A symbol of endurance, resilience, and unity. The ranchers had become Mara's family. They laughed together, shared meals, and worked side by side in a world that demanded more from them than it demanded from almost anyone else. Mara often thought back to the day she had first arrived, hungry and exhausted. With only a single golden ring in her hand, she had come seeking survival. What she found was something far greater: purpose. One morning, as Mara inspected the water collectors, she noticed unusual movement on the horizon. At first, she thought it might be the wind playing tricks on her eyes, stirring dust in patterns she didn't recognize. But as the shapes grew closer, she realized they were not natural. Small ships, sleek, metallic, and human-made, were approaching from the distance. Eli appeared beside her, his expression calm but alert. "Visitors," he said simply. "Not from our settlement." Mara's heart skipped a beat. For weeks, she had believed the galaxy had mostly forgotten Kestrel 9. Now, she saw proof that humans elsewhere were alive and still reaching out across the red dust. The newcomers landed at the edge of the ranch. Mara observed them carefully. They were not armed like the aliens who had once tried to claim the planet. Instead, they carried tools, supplies, and seeds. They were humans, tired and wary, but alive and in need of help. Eli approached them, offering a cautious welcome. Mara followed, ready to assist. She could see the relief in the newcomers' faces when they realized they were among friends, not foes. The journey to Kestrel 9 had been long and dangerous, but the ranch offered safety, knowledge, and, most importantly, a community. Over the next few days, Mara helped the newcomers adapt to life on the ranch. She showed them how to repair equipment, grow food in the harsh soil, and manage water collection systems. She taught them the lessons she had learned from Eli and the other ranchers. Survival was not just about strength or luck, but about adaptation, endurance, and working together. Mara noticed the newcomers watching the seal of the ring in the main hall. She explained its story, how a single golden ring had survived the collapse, had been brought to the ranch by a desperate traveler, and had been transformed into a symbol of human unity. The newcomers listened intently, their eyes shining with understanding. Mara realized that the seal was more than a symbol for Calder Ranch. It could inspire humans across the galaxy. One evening, as Mara and Eli walked along the ridge overlooking the settlement, Mara spoke quietly. "Do you think we can make a difference? Out there? Beyond Kestrel 9? Eli smiled. "We already have. The ring's seal is a symbol now. A story of what humans can do when we endure together. That story spreads faster than you think. One ranch can't change the galaxy alone. But humans who remember what it means to survive, to adapt, to protect each other, they can." Mara nodded, feeling the weight of the truth in his words. Humanity had been underestimated for centuries. Other species had assumed they were fragile, that they would collapse without luxury, without numbers, without technology. But humans endured, humans adapted, and humans fought for each other in ways no one could anticipate. As the sun set that evening, Mara watched the newcomers begin to work alongside the ranchers. Fields were planted, water systems repaired, and shelters reinforced. The community expanded, strengthened by new members who had learned the same lessons Mara had. That value is not in wealth or power, but in courage, endurance, and cooperation. The twin moons rose over Kestrel 9, casting silver light over the red hills. Mara stood at the ridge, looking out at the growing settlement, the green patches of crops, and the small figures moving below. She thought of the galaxy beyond, of the civilizations that had once dismissed humanity as weak or irrelevant. She realized that humans were not only surviving, they were becoming something stronger, something dangerous to those who underestimated them. The memory of her first arrival at the ranch, the hunger, the dust, the fear flooded back. Mara smiled softly. She had come seeking survival. Now, she was witnessing humanity's resurgence. She had grown, learned, and endured. And through her, and through the ranchers, the story of human resilience would spread further than she could imagine. Weeks later, scouts from distant human settlements began arriving at Kestrel 9. They came seeking refuge, knowledge, and community. Mara helped them settle, sharing every lesson she had learned, every skill she had gained. The ranch became a hub of human endurance, a place where lost survivors could find hope, safety, and purpose. Mara often thought about the ring. What had started as a simple piece of gold, a relic of the past, had become a beacon for the future. It reminded everyone that humans were not defined by what they carried or what they lost, but by what they gave, by how they endured, and by how they protected one another. One evening, as the suns dipped behind the hills, Mara and Eli sat together in silence, watching the settlement glow with activity. Children ran across the fields, laughter ringing through the air. Adults tended crops, repaired systems, and shared stories. The seal of the ring, displayed prominently in the main hall, symbolized the unity, courage, and endurance of all these people. Eli broke the silence. "Do you remember what I told you when you first arrived?" Mara smiled. "We don't need gold. We need people." Eli nodded. "Exactly. And now, look at what we've built. Not just here, but beyond. Humanity is remembered again, not as weak, not as fragile, but as resilient, clever, and unstoppable when we stand together." Mara gazed at the horizon, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. She had come to Kestrel 9 alone, lost and desperate. Now, she was part of something larger than herself, a thriving human community, a story of survival that would inspire generations. She reached for the seal of the ring, tracing its symbols with her fingers. It was no longer just a piece of her past. It was proof of what humans could do, even in a galaxy that had tried to forget them, and Mara knew that humanity would endure, adapt, and thrive, as long as they remembered the lessons of endurance, courage, and unity. In the distance, the twin moons shone over the red hills, and Mara felt a quiet certainty in her heart. Humans were no longer just survivors. They were builders, protectors, and pioneers. They were dangerous to those who underestimated them, not because of weapons or wealth, but because of resilience, intelligence, and the willingness to endure together. And as long as people like Mara, Eli, and the ranchers of Calder Ranch continued to teach and inspire, humanity's story would continue. It would be remembered, not as a tale of loss, but as a testament to what humans could achieve when they chose to survive and thrive together. Mara smiled, standing on the ridge and looking over the thriving settlement. She thought of the galaxy, of the worlds beyond Kestrel 9 that might have forgotten humans, and she felt confident that the story of endurance would reach them. For the first time since the collapse, Mara felt the full weight and wonder of being human. She had endured, learned, and adapted. She had helped build a community, protect others, and inspire hope. The ring had been just the beginning, and now, the galaxy would remember.